Okay, so good afternoon, everyone. And this afternoon, we will continue our problems with pronouns topic. So our word of the day for today is encapsulate. It's a verb and it means to show or to express the main idea or quality of something in a brief way. And our sentence for today is her first album encapsulates the spirit of the 90s. So our little did you know section, did you know encapsulate and its related noun capsule come to us from the Latin noun capsula. And this is a diminutive of the noun capsa, which means box. The earliest use of encapsulate is for its literal use, which is to enclose something in a capsule, and this definition dates back to the 19th century. So its extended meaning, to give a summary or synopsis of something, plays on the notion of a capsule being something compact, self-contained, and easily digestible. Simple definition, simple word, we can use it in our everyday life, right? So let us continue. So last week, Tuesday, we stopped at making our pronouns consistent in our sentences. And just for to recap, we're gonna start here again. So here we have it's actually 3 sentences in all, but here we see where we can make our pronouns more consistent in our sentences. So originally, the sentence would have read, once you discover how easy it can be to download music, you will be hooked. One can easily find any type of music, and I have found a number of sites that offer a good selection. So that was the original sentence. Now, the problem with this sentence, as we know, is that the pronouns are not consistent. So in order for it to be consistent, we have to settle on one pronoun. So we're settling for you in the first example. So it would read, once you discover how easy it can be to download music, you will be hooked. You can easily find any type of music, and I have found you can easily find any type of music as well as a number of sites that offer a good selection, right? And then our second example, here the first pronoun being used is one. So we're just going to use one throughout the sentence where it is needed. So first, it would have read, if one is to fully reform the nation's educational system, you must first account for the need to provide academic opportunities for students, regardless of their socioeconomic backgrounds. So it should read, if one is to fully reform the nation's educational system, one must first account for the need to provide academic opportunities for students, regardless of their socioeconomic backgrounds. Now, why is it that we didn't change there to one? Because obviously the there here is, or the antecedent of there here would be students. And in both examples, you can see that you and one are kind of used to address the general audience. So there's like no specific person you're speaking to. Like, can be used singular, it can be used plural. It just addresses the reader in this case, right? So it is best you keep the same point of view, first, second, or third person, and number, singular and plural, within a sentence or series of sentences consistent. So with that being said, we have another example. So originally it says, Jane treats me like family when I visit her. She always makes you feel at home. And this should be, Jane treats me like a family when I visit her. She always makes me feel at home. So again, the point of view is consistent in these two sentences. And we know who is speaking because, first person I. So of course, the point of view stays consistent throughout both sentences. So apart from being consistent, we also have to ensure that our pronoun cases match their function. So in one of our earlier grammar and mechanics classes, we would have established that pronouns, just like nouns, also have different cases that shows their role in the sentence. So is the pronoun the subject? Is it the object? Is it possessive? And with these different cases, you have different pronouns that allow you to know the role it plays in the sentence. So, if it's subject, I, you, he, she, it, we, they, who, whoever. If it's the object, me, you, him, her, it, us, them, whom, whomever. Possessive, my, mine, your, yours, etc., etc. And we know that as we understand what the case of the pronoun is in the sentence, it will be easier to keep the pronoun in the sentence consistent, as well as it will be easier for us to use the pronouns correctly. So let's talk about compound structures. So compound structures are joined by and, or nor. So and, or, nor, right? And compound structures can appear as subjects or objects. So here we have two sentences, one in the subjective case and another in the objective case. So for subjective, we have Angela and me were cleaning up the kitchen. So of course, we know that me is not a subjective pronoun. It is objective. So in this case, I has to be used because I is the subjective pronoun, right? And we know that we should use I because, Angela and I, we're the ones doing the action. We are the subject of the sentence, right? And then in the second example, we have the objective case. So originally it said, my parents waited for an answer from John and I. And, most times in the objective case, that is where, in informal speech, that is where we get messed up most times as English speakers, because it's easier for us to say I in this case rather than me. And we know that me is the objective pronoun. So you would have to read, my parents waited for an answer from John and me, right? Subject complements. So a subject complement renames and specifies the sentence's subject. It follows a linking verb that links the subject to its description or definition. So here again, we have subjective and objective case. Originally, you read, Mark's best friends are Erica and me. So you would have to read, Mark's best friends are Erica and I. Again, subjective. The sentence specifies who Mark's best friends are, right? So we have to use the subjective case. So it's like saying Erica and I are Mark's best friends. Subjective. It has to be I. So the complement, Mark's best friends. So objective case now. You know the girl I was telling you about? Well, that's she over there. Obviously, we know that this sentence cannot be right because we don't speak like this unless it's incredibly informal or if you're using some type of Creole. But in, standard English, as they call it, you would have to read, you know the girl I was telling you about? Well, that's her over there. Objective. The sentence specifies who the girl is. So it's basically answering itself right here. Right. And now we speak about appositives. So appositives are nouns or noun phrases that identify, rename, or explain other nouns or pronouns. Appositives have the same function in the sentence that the word has. So here we have two examples again. The two weary travelers, Yasmin and me, finally found shelter. And then we have the police arrested two protesters, Joyce and me. And we are to rewrite these sentences if there are any errors in the use of me. And of course, the appositives are highlighted. So in the first example, it would have to be rewritten to say Yasmin and I. Why? Well, it is basically the subject of the sentence. It is the subject of the sentence, Yasmin and I. So of course, if you're not sure of what the pronoun case is in the sentence, then again, look at the appositive, if there's an appositive there, because the appositive have the same function in the sentence that the pronoun or noun has. So the two weary travelers finally found shelter. Here we can see that two weary travelers, subject. So of course, Yasmin and I have to be the subject of the sentence as well. And another tip is to take away the other nouns and just use a pronoun and see if it makes sense in the sentence. So it can't be me finally found shelter. It has to be I finally found shelter. So again, that's another tip to help you. Second example, the police arrested two protesters, Joyce and me. This sentence is correct because Joyce and me are the objects of the sentence. Of course, the police is doing the action, so the police is the subject. And so again, you can take out the other nouns and the appositive to see if it makes sense. So it would read, the police arrested me. And it makes sense. So ensure to use these little tips and tricks so you know whether or not your use of pronouns are correct in the sentence. So here we have comparisons with than or as. So when a pronoun follows than or as, make sure you are using its correct form by mentally adding missing words. A missing word or words, right? Pardon me for the incorrect one. So Meg is Meg is quicker than she is. And we find ourselves remembering Maria as often as her. Emma likes cycling more than he. And we know that in this case, the sentences seem a little weird on their own because we obviously add in the missing words mentally, and most times they are already there in our sentences. So Meg is quicker than she is. We find ourselves remembering Maria as often as we remember her. I think this sentence needs a revamp. But anyways, and Emma likes cycling more than he likes cycling. Another example, Sonali is smart as she is. Brian has the same car as I have. I am younger than she is. All of these are there. But most times, for example, the first sentence, we would say Meg is quicker than her. And of course, this can also work, right? So there are limits to the Danor as rule, as I was explaining. First of all, English usage is not consistent depending on the specific subject pronouns used. So Theo is taller than I, Theo is taller than he/she. These sentences are acceptable if slightly formal. So again, a normal person with, in layman terms, they would not just say, Leo is taller than he or she. We normally add in the missing words, even though we know that they are supposed to be there. So, pronouns as subject or object as infinitive. So whether a pronoun functions as the subject or object of an infinitive, it should be written in the objective case. We wanted our lawyer and her, which is subject, to defend infinitive, us, object, against this charge. The nurse told her and me, compound subject, to go, infinitive, to the examining room. And we know that infinitives are just two plus the base verb. So to breathe, to eat, to play, to defend, to go, all of these are infinitives. Again, the issue with this is mainly seen as formal writing and speaking. In informal settings, we would just say maybe a noun with the our lawyer in the first sentence. So it would be, we wanted Candice and our lawyer to defend us against the charge. That is how people normally speak in informal, relaxed settings. And you could probably say in the second example, the nurse told us to go to the examining room. Simple, easy. Yeah, we don't really speak as formally and as structured in informal settings, right? Noun or pronoun with a gerund. The animals fighting disturbed the entire neighborhood. Because of them screeching, no one could get any sleep. The cats crying stopped when they got some milk. So here we have the ing forms of verbs, which we know are the gerund form. And in all of these sentences, the gerund is basically seen as a noun, right? The animals fighting disturbed the entire neighborhood, right? So instead of acting as just a verb, they can also act as a noun in the sentence. But because of them acting as a noun, you don't get confused with knowing which pronoun to use. Because, for example, let's say the last sentence, the cat's crying stopped when they got some milk. The cats is the antecedent of they, right? So, of course, keep in mind that the noun has to, well, the pronoun has to agree with the noun, right? The antecedent. And lastly, continuing on noun or pronoun with a gerund. When a noun or pronoun appears before a gerund functioning as a noun, it should usually be treated as a possessive. So add apostrophe S or apostrophe only for nouns ending in S. So of course, we know this already. When making possessives of nouns. And then pronouns, we know we have the possessive case. Mine, mine, her, hers, his, their, theirs, its, ours, whose. And with all of that being said, that is it for today's lesson, right? So next class, we will start our problems with adjectives. And that's next week, Tuesday. And then this Thursday coming, November 10, we will be finishing up extracting implied information, and we will start essay writing. So thank you all for listening, and I hope you would have learned something. Take care.